carbon in different organisms and tell how old the carbon is. Then a paleontologist is somebody who studies fossils. Now, in order for a fossil to form, before something decays or breaks down, it has to be buried in sediment, which is going to be loose soil. It can't be a clay. You have to have more like a sand and a lot of sand to pile on top of it before it breaks down into nothing. So you find them in lowlands, swampy areas, next to volcanoes. I know in the news a lot lately they've had the volcano eruption in Chile. Have you guys heard of Pompeii or saw the movie Pompeii? Stuff like that where it was quickly buried in ash. Ash is considered a sediment. It preserved everything as it buried it. Now, fossils will never have, every fossil will never be able to completely go all the way back in time, but it does provide support for evolution because they can guess the age of the fossil based on what sediment it's buried in. Geologists study all of the different time zones. Each time zone had a specific type of sediment that they use the carbon dating for. Based on what sediment it was buried in, they can tell how old it is, and then they can compare fossils from the Precambrian time, billions of years ago, to today. Now, besides fossils, you can look at anatomy and development. There are things called homologous structures, where we have similar structures in our body systems as whales have or as chimpanzees have. So looking up in the corner up here, you can see we have similar bone structure. They may not be the same exact length or the same exact size, but they're similar enough to know that they are closely related. There are also things called vestigial structures. We all have appendixes. Nobody really knows what they do. They really don't have a function. But what they think is at one time, something that we evolved from needed the appendix for some reason. It had some function hundreds and millions of years ago that we've just never gotten rid of it. Looking at this example over here, salamanders have a structure in their foot that is also found in whales and in boa constrictors. It just doesn't have a function in whales and boa constrictors. And looking at proteins and DNA sequences. So DNA, we have genetic code. There's 4 letters we use to represent DNA, A, T, C, and G. You guys covered that, right? Okay. So looking at the A, T, C, and G, occasionally we have mutation. With the mutations, they can look at where they happened and how they're passed on from one generation to the next. Looking at differences between organisms, then they can see who's related based on those different mutations. So looking at this chart, these are how many different amino acids we have with different things. Chimpanzees, 0. We're most closely related to chimpanzees out of all of the things in that list, and out of a lot of things in general. Pigeon, 12, so somewhat related, but not as much. Yeast, 42, we're pretty much nothing like yeast. Alright, so how this works is each generation, the mutation typically sticks around. Okay, then they start to build up. So if you have one mutation in one generation, that'll also get passed on. Then you'll have another mutation. Both of those get passed on, and so on. So eventually, you have a ton of mutations, 100 generations later, that changes the protein. Because amino acids, the A, T, C, G combinations, make a protein that says this is what your hair color is going to be, your eye color, how tall you are. So that's how we're changing things. So this is kind of what it looks like. We have, this could be you, pass a mutation on here, pass another mutation on, now we have 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them. Once we get down to here, we're probably looking at something that looks quite a bit different. Questions on this? Alright, you guys are going to have some practice looking at how different structures compare to one another, and a few questions that go along with the section in the book. But before you get started on this, there's a couple Number 2 says classifying. What does it mean to classify something? Any ideas? Alright, what you're doing for number 2, put them into groups based on how similar they are. So if you're looking up at the top, dog and human, maybe in the same group, or you'll have like a whale and a frog maybe in the same group. Based on the function of the limb, you're going to put them into groups. And there should be 3 or 4 groups, depending on how you split them up. You'll either have 3 or 4 groups for number 2. Alright? You guys can work together and do this, but everybody should turn one of these in, and you have the rest of the